Hi, everybody. We're back today with another episode of Howie's Hometown Heroes, where we feature business owners, entrepreneurs, and community members who are doing extraordinary, amazing things right there in their own community, but also around the world. Today, we have a pleasure, awesome guy, Dr. Bart Rademaker. He's in the Sarasota, Florida area. Doing great things. He's a plastic and reconstructive surgeon. I want to find out what does that mean and what's the difference between that stuff. But he really has a whole different approach to medicine, where you might hear a lot of doctors in the medical system in general. It's just a lot of drugs trying to fix people quick and easy and not so cheap sometimes, right? But Dr. Bart has a different approach, whereas your body has its own intelligence. And you give it a little nudge, it'll help it along a little bit, and it can do really amazing things. And he's done some of that in other places. He's spoken at conferences around the world. He's got tons of video and audio resources on his website. I encourage you to check that out. We're going to put the links in the comments below. And his mission, passion, in the world is creating change, enhancing life, and generating peaceful awareness. That's a really good way to look at that, right? And just as a fun thing for him, he was nominated to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, holy cow. That's a new one for me. That's a new one for this show. Nobody has ever said that before. So we're in good company here. So thanks, Dr. Bart. This is great having you here today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Howard. I really appreciate being here. You're a rock star here, and definitely excited to be talking to your audience and seeing how I can support them.
Yeah, this is fun. So tell us a little fun fact about you, something that we might say, oh, man, wow, I didn't expect that for sure.
Well, one of the things that I'm actually quite proud of is that when I was 18 years old, I was kind of rebelling against the world around me and decided to lead a team of 20 runners across Europe on a relay run to raise funds for a scholarship for the school. Wow. And so when I was 20, we actually managed it from Wales to Italy.
Wow,
and so that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing it.
How many miles or kilometers, or how long did that take?
That was actually 2,500 kilometers to be exact. And so we ran it in 10 days.
In 10 days? Is it like 24 hours a day kind of thing? And
no, we kind of split it up. At first, honestly, it was kind of an interesting experience. And at first it was a real relay run, right? And we just passed the baton. But then we realized we were really behind schedule. And so then we just made sure that the entire course was ran, but we kind of separated the runners at the same time in different places. So we could make it in 10 days. So we ran, we had our foot, on the ground all the way through.
All the way through. There you go. That's the way to look at it. Excellent. Yeah. And you raised lots of money? Sure.
Enough for one scholarship for sure.
All right,
that was the outcome. So we achieved our outcome that we were hoping to get.
Very good, very good. And did anybody else pick up the baton, so to speak, and keep going? Or
no, actually my plan originally was to after completion of that was actually to do a cycle relay all the way from England to Singapore.
Oh my gosh.
Wasn't sure how we were going to navigate the waters, but then I got really involved in medical school, and so that kind of fell aside. It's was a dream, was a really cool dream. But the other part is nobody was crazy enough like I was.
That's it. It's hard to pass that baton if other people don't have that same kind of passion. Cool. Well, that's really a lot of fun. That's certainly a fun fact for you for sure.
Yep.
So let's get you in medical school and stuff. How did you get what was it about medicine that kind of got you interested in that?
Well, it's funny you asked, because it sort of was like I didn't even have a choice. My parents were academics, and so it was expected of all of us to be academics. And so one way they made sure that would happen is I did an aptitude test when I was 13. And basically my choice was be a doctor or be a vet. So I ended up, knowing that my fate was sealed and I become a doctor. And quite frankly, I'm happy. I'm super happy. It's exactly the destiny that's totally right for me.
Very good. Very, I've always heard that I don't want to say that veterinarians it's a very difficult program also. I mean, in addition to taking care of human health, animal health is also hard. But always, like, at least in human health, you got one species to worry about. In veterinarians, you got a whole variety of stuff to figure out. So,
well, but my problem is I have patients who talk back. I mean, that's
okay. Or they say where it hurts. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. And so you get through medical school. When did the when did the plastic reconstructive surgery come about? And what's the difference between these two, if there is much of a difference?
No, plastos is a Greek term which means to mold, to change. And so plastic surgery basically is, how do we change things? And so a lot of people just confuse that with cosmetic surgery. Cosmetic surgery is just a small part of that discipline. And the reconstructive part essentially means, when somebody has a serious injury, we can actually reconstruct, those injuries. And so as an example, the most common one is somebody who undergoes a mastectomy. That we reconstruct the breast. We can reconstruct faces, we can reconstruct limbs, we can do so many things. It's a very intricate and complex discipline, and very rewarding, which led me to the concept of what I'm excited about is change. How can I help people transform their lives, not just physically, but also in every aspect of their lives.
So when you that's a good point. When we say plastic, I'm thinking plastic, but that's not it at all. It's really like a molding. Well, there's something new to it. It should change. I don't know, change the word. I mean, I don't know, but that's the way I see what you mean. That's really very cool. And I can sort of see. So I'm guessing that when people come to you for changing themselves, or they have an injury, right? They have to fix that. Once they're, I don't want to say back to normal, or even better than they were before. Or in their minds anyway, better, that makes a huge mental change in them too, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, we all have this internal image of ourselves, and when the outside doesn't match the inside, then we have all sorts of feelings and negative feelings about ourselves, everything else. And so a lot of people have a critical view on cosmetic surgery, like breast augmentations or tummy tucks. But I tell you one thing, I mean, it's really no different than reconstructive work, because when you remove a breast, and that's the identity of womanhood, and we can reconstruct that and give that identity back to that woman. That's a major change, and so people will be so much happier. And so I've seen major shifts in people's lives, even just with cosmetic surgeries, because it is it is a simple, it's a straightforward process when it's done well. I mean, some people do exaggerate a little bit, or do too much, it's not really in alignment, with them. When it's in alignment with their true self, then it's magic. It really is magic.
Oh, very cool. Very good. And you have some success stories, or people have changed? And
absolutely. Many success stories. I mean, just whole life being transformed. And especially in women, because oftentimes what I find that women are more willing to change, to grow, to expand. Unlike us guys, I mean, we work so hard to get where we are, and we don't want to change. Well, I'm an exception to that, by the way. But many women, do feel that, and it gives them a new lease on life many times. Again, when it's done correctly, and I want to qualify that, because it's not always done in the best of manners, and that kind of surgeries I'm not a proponent for.
And then how would somebody know? How do you judge, or
well, that's up to the doc, right? The doc needs to have that integrity, things that you and I are learning right now is, what is that? I got a little flyback over here driving me nuts. And so it's really helping the individual understand, what they can have, what are their options, what are their choices. And what I do is when I work with a new client, as I prefer to call them, I ask, like, what are your outcomes? What do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? Versus, oh, I just want this. So I help them, understand what's possible for them, and I allow them to make the right decision for themselves. too often what I find is that the surgeon makes a decision and it might actually be the wrong one.
Ah,
And
okay.
the other thing that I found is that too much of a good thing, more of a good thing, I should say, is not good.
Right.
And too many people are just exaggerating their looks. And there's a whole issues with that.
Yeah,
Don't go.
sure. Yeah, but I'm sure there's all kinds of, I don't want to say YouTube videos, but things where, yeah, things just don't work out and stuff. So that's
Yeah, we
good.
won't go down that rabbit hole, but the
Yeah,
rabbit
it's
hole I
okay.
do
All right.
want
I agree. I
to
agree.
go down
Keep it
is
on the
this.
positive.
Yeah. No, the one thing that I'm very much a proponent of, and which I learned very early on as a plastic and reconstructive surgeon, is that I was doing all the work in the physical aspect. And I realized that people wanted more, but just weren't aware of how to get access to it. And so we're talking about optimizing health and both, physically and mentally. And so I actually worked with the Tony Robbins company. I trained with that company, became one of their coaches. And so I coach people to help transform their lives. But I
Mm.
also coach people in the aspect of wellness or health optimization. And that's a very exciting field for me today because there are too many people that are sick. I mean, 50% of the adult American population is
Oh,
chronically ill, and it's all preventable. And so,
yeah.
just so what I like to say, I mean, everybody talks about prevention. So what I say, look, there used to be a phrase of, an ounce of prevention is a ton of cure. Well, what I like to say, an ounce of health optimization is worth a ton of prevention. So you do the math
Ah,
without cures,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because health optimization is much more than just prevention. It's really understanding or having the knowledge of your blueprint, your own blueprint of your perfectly working body, and then the dashboard, which tells you, what levels of different hormones or micronutrients or other things that are happening in the body that fortunately in the last couple of years we now have access to all that information. 20 years ago we didn't. When I first
Really?
started,
Okay.
we didn't have
All
that
right.
information. But nowadays, with the advanced technologies of diagnostics, and then the many types of emerging technologies to help optimize the health, it's a very exciting time. And that's my primary
Oh,
focus today.
wow, very cool, very cool. Now, also here, I don't know if it's related or not. I mean, tell me, is like, I don't know, some huge percentage of Americans are obese, or at least enough
Right.
overweight to be like almost obese. Is that, do you sort of fall into that area too?
Yeah. So essentially, right now, I would say it's 50% is overweight, soon to be 60% of the American
Mm,
population is going to be overweight. I mean, the statistics are quite scary. And
yeah.
really, essentially, from the 1950s and early or late 1950s, early 60s, that's when we saw a skyrocketing rise in all chronic diseases, cancers,
Mm,
diabetes,
yeah.
overweight, neurodegenerative diseases. So that basically tells us, I mean, all of that's preventable. You
Yeah.
just have to have access to the right tools and resources and the data and the information to make the right decisions. And that's my passion right now. That's what I'm set out to do, what I've been working on for the last 20 years.
Cool.
Help people get access to affordable and effective, tools and resources to optimize their health.
Well, so, okay, great. We've got all that you can create as many tools as you want. I don't want to say how do you get it into people, but how do you, I don't want to say nudge people to do the right, do what's in their best interest, right? If you're not interested, or you know what I mean, and just getting people to change their behavior, I see is the hardest thing to get anybody, a coach or a doctor, to do. Right? Do you have some ways around that?
So that's precisely what I'm working on the most integrous way, if you will. But
Yeah, good.
ultimately, why people make change is because of pain, right?
Yeah.
And when they have enough pain, they'll change. The idea then is to help them recognize a future potential pain in order
Mm,
to make change right now, so that you could absolutely avoid that pain. And that's the hard part. That is really the hard part,
yeah, for
particularly
sure.
because the real competition right now is all the noise that's out there. I mean, all the
Yeah.
media, all the distractions, all the obligations, the financial concerns, what have
Yeah.
you. And so part of my job is educational. So what I
Oh,
do is I curate products, then I educate, and then I guide. And that's why my program is called the Doctor's Guide. And I'm also educating my colleagues out there, the
okay.
doctors, to embrace a different way of looking at things than they were trained, and allowing them to get access to all these tools and resources that can dramatically change someone's life. Because ultimately, that is what people do want. I mean, many people are much more into their health than they were ever before.
They were before, yeah, for sure, for sure. And are doctors any better trained than from years ago to now about drugs and more natural approach? No, nothing.
Not really.
Great,
And
great.
and the system's like that, right? And
Yeah.
rather than going down that rabbit hole too, it's because I went down that rabbit hole because you're trained to think a certain way and all these
Sure.
different things. And then we have exceptionalism, if you will, in our specialties. The challenge is that it's super myopic or just myopic, which means that you're not looking at all the other aspects of the human body that's contributing to the problem that you're exceptional at, right?
Yeah.
So you actually kind of miss out. And so that's the challenge of the system, is that we become super specialists. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And so what I'm looking to do is inspire my colleagues to say, okay, great. Let me embrace, some team members, some partners, and assisting my clients, like as I like to call them, to begin to address, all the pillars of health. I call them 5 pillars of health.
Okay.
And so essentially then, you could be still that super specialist, but you then also are like the conductor, right? You're the conductor of the orchestra, where you are delegating different, people to do different things so that it can optimize somebody's health. So you don't have to do everything because you won't know everything. That's part of the problem. There's so much information. And so our job then, and my job in particular, is to curate all the different types of products and services so that my colleagues don't have to do all that work, right? And then educate the patients and guide them with the right things that are available. Because right now, the people leading the charge, in my opinion, they're not the docs. They're these entrepreneurs and the people outside of the medical system that have this journey of pain to purpose. I've talked to so many people that were dealing with a variety of different challenges, couldn't get the answers from the medical system, no fault of them, and came up with their own solutions. And now they've got companies to serve people with those solutions.
Oh, like what? You said what kind of?
Well, one of my favorites, and this is a game changer, is the DNA company. And the CEO and founder of that company came from Silicon Valley. He had some very significant health challenges and recognized where the big gap was. And using artificial intelligence, has developed a company that is a leader now. I mean, compared to all the other DNA companies, I would say they're pretty much in the stratosphere of abilities to understand how your blueprint, your DNA blueprint, can result in all sorts of medical conditions and how to mitigate that. So, people are concerned about Alzheimer's, right? As an example. So the question is, are you at risk or are you not at risk? And if you are at risk, what can you do about it? The way we process our sugar. So are you at risk for developing, obesity and diabetes? What can you do to mitigate that? And so having that intelligence is really important. As you mentioned earlier in your introduction, the body is intelligent. I mean, when you think about it, there's an incredible intelligence that we barely have tapped into. And so the more that we can understand how that's networked, then we can plug into that network and start making the changes.
Very cool, very cool. So it's really an interesting, a total different kind of approach. So
Yes,
right. So you got to really understand what's going on. So I guess let me think about that for a minute. So if you have some genetic kind of diseases or what's it called when you genetically
predisposition. So you have
like
a genetic predisposition to a certain medical condition, right? But these conditions only develop, when the perfect storm is there, when all the different that are causing it. The idea that you have a genetic destiny is incorrect. The genes are part of it for sure, but the environment is a larger part. So when the environment around you is exposing you to all sorts of elements that are conducive to developing, say, Alzheimer's, then what we need to do is we need to remove those environmental factors. And that's easy to do for the most part. I mean, strictly about 1%, maybe 1.5% is strictly genetic. The rest, it's multifactorial.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so that's why it's so easy. And not to criticize anybody who gets a mastectomy with a BRCA gene. The truth is that those will only express themselves into developing cancer when there's enough environmental factors there. And when we know what those are, which this company is beginning to really decipher at the highest level, then it'll be a lot easier to prevent the development of certain medical conditions. Is it 100% guaranteed? No, absolutely not. Nothing is. At this point, maybe in 5, 10, 20 years, we'll have so much more data that we could absolutely prevent those kinds of conditions. And so then guess what? You can just die of old age.
Yeah, actually, I know somebody who went through that surgery, and it was, certainly an agonizing decision to do. But at least in her mind, it weighed, I guess I better do this or but the future pain, like we talked about. Right? But
and at the time, it was the right decision with the information that they had, right?
But they have, right? You can't second guess
yourself. But now we these emerging technologies, they're changing the entire landscape of medicine, which is exciting. And my personal vision that I've had for the last 20 years, the doctor of the future is one that's not going to be prescribing drugs or performing surgeries. And that's very exciting. And that's just tapping into the body intelligence. How do we tap into it? You've got emerging technologies in bioenergy that are incredibly exciting, and those will be game changers as well. How you can energetically change the cellular function almost instantly so that these cells can function normally. One of the issues with disease is that there's a cellular dysfunction for a lot of different factors, and when you can upregulate cellular function almost instantly, then that changes everything. We still have to make the right choices. We still have to do the, sleep well. I mean, sleep is very much disregarded as one of the major pillars of health. For me, 8 hours is non-negotiable. I want 8 hours a night. Then it comes to the kinds of foods that you eat and the foods that you avoid. And then exercise, of all these different things, and then mindfulness exercises. All these things have an impact on your health. And when you look at those countries or those places that they call blue zones, like in Okinawa is one of them, where you have centenarians, plowing their own field at the age of 101. I mean, with agility and vitality, that's, comparable to a 30-year-old here in the US. I mean, that's insane, right?
So that's cool. So I've often thought about that as it's I would say in my language, it's just their genetics and whatever, and I grew up here because I had different genetics, and no, all our bodies are the same. We just treat them differently from where we're going.
Well, look, I mean, your genes have done you very well. I mean, last time you told me you're 93 years old, and
something like that. Yeah, something like that. So that's really a lot of fun. I tell you, I mean, as a fun fact for me, I'm 72. I try to go cycling and hiking and do all that kind of stuff for myself. But in my head, I feel like I'm 35. Now, sometimes my body doesn't agree with that, and I just whatever. So, but it's always fun. And I think for me, it's really more of that the energy and always meeting new people and always having conversations and really being engaged is really, it keeps me kind of going. It's like one of the things I get a huge energy from teaching classes like I'm going to be doing tomorrow, and I get a lot more out of that. I hope the people who are in the class get something out of it, but I get at least as much out of it. So it's really a lot of fun. So,
well, what a blessing, that we get to learn from you with all your years of experience. And I think that's a key distinction that I think a lot of people in your age group don't realize for a lot of different reasons. But the fact that you're this active is a huge thing for your health optimization.
Yeah.
And I look forward to having another conversation like that over the years until you're 92.
There you go. Let's do it. Let's do it. So till you catch up with me, that'll be the idea.
That's right.
Very good, very good. So you got all these things in the future. What's like next in your life? Where do you see yourself as part of this whole piece?
Well, the truth is that I've been working on this for the last 20 years. And the struggle was exactly, what your question early on. How do you get people engaged? How do you
Yeah.
get them to do this? And what I now found is that now with all these emerging technologies and all the information that's available, then it's actually a lot easier, for
Oh, okay.
people to understand. See, the two things that were lacking was, first of all, people didn't know what they didn't know, and they're relying on other people to make the decisions for them.
Sure.
And clearly, the system is failing in giving people what they really need. I mean, clearly, the medical system is providing those acute care situations which are essential, and we are exceptional at
Yeah.
all of that. But when it's not emergence, when it's not urgent, should say, then it's incumbent on each of us to learn what it is that we can do for ourselves to optimize our health, because there's so many good reasons for it. I mean, just alone the vitality, the agility, your golden years, you're hanging out with your kids, you're not sick, you're not spending all this money on this stuff, and you're not dying prematurely. So I look at it from, illness is a choice. There is no excuse to be sick.
There you go. That's a good look at it.
So there is no excuse to be sick anymore. Whatever you want to say, whatever cards you're dealt, there is no longer an excuse, because we have the information and we have the technologies. It's just a matter of helping people make that connection. And that's what I'm working on. The main thing that I'm working on right now is a masterclass for my colleagues out there, because they're struggling, in their business as well, with all the issues going on. And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but truly they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be short of 100,000 doctors in the next 8 years.
Wow.
That's another problem that we have. Yeah. So what I hope to do is give my colleagues out there some new options so that their business can thrive, and that they can also offer their clients, solutions that will benefit them as well, and potentially avoid them taking, drugs, medicines.
And I guess trying to keep it affordable to people. Who's paying for what?
Big time. Big time. Right? Because all this is discretionary income, right? Yeah. And so, what I've been saying is, making wellness a must and accessible to all. So that means making it available, which it now is, make it easily accessible, which it isn't yet, and making it affordable, which for the most part, it is quite affordable nowadays, many of these technologies. And so it's closing the gap between what's available and what people are getting right now.
What's getting now? It sounds like that's a big project for sure.
Yes, it is.
It is. Well,
it has nothing to do with plastic surgery.
Nothing. We're just gonna fix it. We're just gonna reconstruct it. We'll just put it back in. Put the plumbing back in where it belongs, and everybody will work fine.
Indeed.
So very good. This was really a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And just for everybody out there, if you know somebody who is as cool as Dr. Bart, just let me know, and we'll kind of get him on the show. And just remember that whether it's your business, your community organization, or even your family, it's your health, right? But also it's the money that make those gears keep turning. Make sure your money is working for you in the most optimal way it can. Thanks for being here, Bart. I appreciate it.
Howard, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
Thanks.